Meeting tonight. Yes, I know. Thank you. All right, I'd like to call to order the Park Board for the City of Edina for Tuesday, September 8th, 2015. And could we get a roll call, please?
Member Segreto. Here. Member Green. Here. Member Good. Here. Member Jacobson. Here. Member Gieseke.
Here.
Member Strother.
Here.
Member Jones.
Here.
Member McCormick.
Here.
Member Christ. Here. Member Luani.
Here. All right, that's a perfect segue to introduce our two new student members for the year here. So I'm going to give them each a chance to take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, introduce yourself, what you do in high school, and why you wanted to be on the Park Board, if you would, please.
My name is Lauren Christ. I'm a senior at Edina. I'm involved in cross country, track, the Latin club, mock trial, and the writer's block. And I wanted to join the Park Board because I was interested in the kind of the economics of how the Park Board allocates their funds to maximize the benefits to the parks.
Hi, I'm Anik Ohani, and I'm also a senior at Edina High School, and I am involved in the math team, Edina Varsity Tennis, Model United Nations, as well as the president of the Ping Pong Club. And I wanted to join the Park Board because I want to provide a more inclusive community for in the parks departments, and also to create a more enjoyable and safe place for people of all ages to come together in the parks.
All right, welcome to both of you two, and thank you for that introduction. Next on the agenda is approval of the meeting agenda. So can I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There is a second, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next is the adoption of the consent agenda. All right, thank you. There's a motion. Second. There's been seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. And next is community comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to approach and speak to us? Please come. Please tell us your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Laura Condrick, and I'm at 6115 Lincoln Drive. And I have a real interest in the buckthorn invasion here in Edina. And it just struck me, I moved back here from California at the end of 2011, and I went for a walk in the Bredesen Park. And I was just appalled to see all the beautiful vistas I remembered were gone. No sloughs, no creeks, no ponds, all obliterated, all the views by buckthorn. And I'd like to do something to try to help that process along. And I understand from what I've learned that funding is a big problem for buckthorn removal, and somebody called it the 100-year war, so it would be something that was really expensive to eradicate here in Edina. But I'm confused, too, in a community that has as many resources as it does, why a community effort from a church in Eden Prairie came to help us with buckthorn in our parks. How come we can't afford to do that and we need someone else's, so-called charity? It was a good deed. It was a good deed, but it just really blew my mind that we can't take care of this problem. And that it has gotten so bad. And I walk in a lot of the parks, and it's just appalling. And we have a real problem with our pool because the birds drop the berries in the bottom of our pool, and it discolors it. So we have to have a scrubbing session every once in a while. And it has more of an effect than just vistas. It affects our properties. And, if you've been walking through Bredesen and you've stepped in the berries, you know how that is on the bottom of your feet, and you don't want to track that home. So I guess my question, and I really, really like someone to come and talk to me and explain things to me, is why we can't afford to do this problem, take care of this problem, why nothing's been really done as far as I can see going back in the minutes since 2012. And there's supposed to be some kind of chart that's showing progress. I can't find it. All I can see is all the parkland and progress and designations from 2012. So I'd really appreciate a park board member talking to me and filling me in and helping me understand this problem of funding this buckthorn. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Is there someone on the city staff that would be knowledgeable to maybe
I don't want
speak
to
with her?
talk to city staff. I've already done that.
You have. Okay, thank you. All right, name and address, please.
Yes, top of the evening. Steve Sando, 5133 Juanita, and I'm also a member of the Arden Park Neighborhood Association. And first of all, I want to thank you all for the great job you do on behalf of the citizens of Edina. I just have two comments tonight. Has a sketch plan been developed as yet for the Arden Park area of the new bridge on 54th and Minnehaha, or are we still working on that? Is that allowed to ask a question?
Sure.
That is a project that's in our engineering department, not part of the Parks and Recreation department. So we would have to go with them to go to them to find out the specifics on that bridge.
Okay, fine. Thanks, Ann. The other comment was that I was down there today, and we got this beautiful, expensive bridge. It's just going to be an asset to our community. Arden Park and that falls is really a diamond in the rough. The retaining wall on the north side of the bridge that they put on the sides is very, very crude. It's just rough concrete with a bunch of stones pushed into it. An amateur could have done that well. So I just invite you, if you would, when you have time, to stop by there. So you're looking at the bridge, looking south on the north side of the bridge, and the very crude retaining wall. And I think we have to address that before it gets too far down the road. But I thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, too. All right, seeing no other folks in the audience, we can move along to the rest of the agenda.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Somebody will get back to me?
Well, I'll have something to get back to. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
You bet.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. So first on the agenda is the 2015 Park Board Work Plan, and Anna's going to have a few comments towards that.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to give the Park Board an update as to where we stand on our 2015 Park Board Work Plan, and certainly answer any questions that any board members might have along with that. The first item on the Park Board Work Plan for 2015 is an inclusive playground at Roslyn Park. And this project has been pushed back slightly. We had hoped to complete this project by the end of 2015. And with all of the projects that we have currently going on in the department, the large construction projects, this is going to be a very significant project for us because it's going to require a significant fundraising initiative. It's going to probably, we haven't done any plans for this yet, but it's probably going to require at least a 50% match in terms of fundraising. And so what we would like to do as the next step in this process, either a little bit later this year or the very early part of 2016, is start to work with the Park Board on a plan to get some community engagement, possibly select a vendor to work with to help us develop some plans, and then we would be able to potentially use that plan to help in a fundraising effort. So the primary reason that this hasn't been taken any further steps is that it's been primarily a staff time issue. And I think it would also be helpful to have a Park Board member who would be willing to step up and help with that project as well. Any questions on that one? Okay, we'll certainly be talking about it a little bit later in the year. Susan is our staff person that's going to be heading up that initiative. The next one is strategic planning with a comprehensive needs assessment. And as you know, the Park Board moved this item on to the City Council. We talked about this with the City Council at a work session and at a City Council meeting. And the city council was concerned about the length of the document and a little bit of the content in the document. And so what I've done over the last month or so is work with Confluence to specifically develop a section of the document that could be a pull-out standalone version of the document that acts specifically as an executive summary. And then there are two other sections that one is the needs assessment and the next one is the implementation framework. So all of the content from the original document is still there, but it gives us a very specific and more detailed executive summary. So I just received that document just over a week ago, and so I haven't had a chance to really thoroughly review that document yet. I intend to do that in the next week, and at that point I'll pass it back to the park board so you can have another review of it. Any questions on that one?
So it's going to come back to us and then go to city council again, or has it been approved, or is it?
It has not been approved by the city council, and I would like to bring it back to the park board essentially as information only. Honestly, the content of the document hasn't changed. It's more of a formatting issue, but I think it's really important that the park board sees it again, and I think you're going to be happy with the results, at least what I've seen so far. But as far as the content and the initiatives and, you know, all of the key items in that document, they are the same. All right, the next item is the Fred Richards Park Master Plan. And that project is a project that we decided fairly early in the year we weren't going to be able to complete in 2015. Again, two reasons for that. One is it's a very significant item in terms of staff time. And we struggled a little bit with that, but more importantly, we didn't have, because of our 2-year budget cycles, we didn't have a funding source budgeted to be able to complete that master plan. So I have requested funding in the 2016 budget for that master plan. I don't know yet at this point if it's going to be approved for 2016 or 2017, but we need that funding source in order to be able to hire a consultant to help us with that final master plan. Obviously, this is a critical project for the city. It's a critical project for the residents that live in that area. I know everyone is very anxious, as is staff. We're very anxious to get this project going. We've been maintaining that park as parkland. I think it's been going pretty smoothly. I've had a lot of conversations with the residents, the neighbors in that area, making sure that everything was up to the standards that they expected. It's been going smoothly. So we hope to get that master plan kicked off just as soon as possible and as soon as we're able to receive funding.
And just one question on that. How will this consultant be different than the last consultant that was used? What's the difference in scope?
Great question, Sue. The last project that we completed for Fred Richards was a vision plan. And what we really wanted to do was we wanted to explore potential concepts that we would include in that site. And we did just a more basic graphical sketch of what that could potentially look like. We talked about active uses versus passive uses. We talked about some specific elements that could be incorporated into a final master plan. We talked a lot about the 9 Mile Creek Trail and how that alignment could go through. But the next step in terms of a master plan would take that design to the next level. So I would see us using that as a planning document, an informational document, but the next step would create a very specific, detailed plan using some of those concepts. The other thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to complete the strategic plan of the park system to make sure that we weren't missing something in terms of needs that could be incorporated into that final master plan. So the next step would be much more detailed. It would give us the ability to get a lot more public input in terms of what that final design will look like. and it'll give us the ability to take that next step then to the design and specification phase to prepare construction documents.
And how much is the funding request for this next step?
Was that $75,000? We requested $75,000.
And what was spent for the first concept plan?
It was approximately $25,000, 25 to 30. Louise, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was very much in that range.
So do we have, you're thinking about then earmarking funds after that in 16 for 17 or 18 possibly from a capital standpoint? Is that kind of the plan? Find out what you're thinking about and then budget the dollars?
Exactly. What we would ask as we complete the master plan, we would ask for estimates in terms of construction. And then part of the process then would be to determine the funding source for the construction.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for the questions. The next item is the Arneson Acres Master Plan. I know we've talked about this with the board, but just to review, staff and the Garden Council had concerns over the potential future relocation of the historic buildings across the street, the Grange Hall and the Cahill School. And from my perspective and also from the Garden Council's perspective, we felt that it was important to make sure that we didn't complete a plan at this stage of the game that might end up becoming moot in a few years if construction across the highway, potentially with a lid, would preclude those buildings from being able to sit on their current locations. And it certainly is far from a certainty that those buildings will ever need to be moved. But I felt like it was prudent at this point in time, with the potential conversations of a lid over Highway 100, that we might want to just wait and make sure that we didn't spend a significant amount of the Garden Council's money on a plan that might not have the ability to implement. So after many conversations with the Garden Council, we decided that it would be best to just hold off on this project right now.
But how long, I mean, what are you thinking in terms of time frame?
You know, I would really like to review this annually. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to say if the Garden Council is ever going to make this type of a generous donation offer to us again. But what I told the Garden Council at the time is that at this point, I felt very badly, having this conversation with them because it was such a generous offer. But I felt that, and the offer that I made to them was that I would like to budget our resources, city dollars, to prepare a master plan when I felt that we were ready to do that, and then potentially have Garden Council monies help us to implement that plan. And they seemed very receptive to that idea. It might be nice to use their money for elements of that plan instead of the design. But in terms of an actual time frame, I wish I had that crystal ball to be able to say, but it is definitely something that I feel is critical. It's certainly very critical to the Garden Council, who does so much tremendous work out there regularly. I would put that in a very high priority in terms of parks that need master plans as soon as possible. All right, the next one is cost recovery goals for enterprise facilities. And this is an item that we hope to bring to you, no, not hope, we will bring to you before the end of the year. Susan has been working very diligently with our enterprise facility managers on preparing business plans for those facilities. And part of the business plans that we're preparing is going to be a recommendation of cost recovery goals. So when we get these business plans completed, we intend to bring them to the park board for your review. And we would like your feedback and your comments on the cost recovery goals that staff will be recommending. And then we intend to move those forward onto the City Council for their approval as well. So this is something that we feel very strongly about, making sure that the Park Board has significant input and also receives a council approval and directive.
So which items are those that you would have business plans for? Which businesses?
For all of our enterprise facilities. So that would include the Edina Art Center, the pool, Edinburgh Park, Centennial Lakes Park, the golf course, and the arena.
And so it would be, you would show like a 14, then a 15, and then a 16 for your plan, or 17 for your goals, type of that kind of how it's going to work?
I'll let Susan jump in on this.
Yeah, that's exactly what we'll show. We'll look at a snapshot of kind of historical numbers, and then what we're currently, cost recovery currently at, and then what we're going to be projecting for the future, where we feel like we will consistently be able to reach.
Okay.
And I missed one enterprise, and that's the Sports Dome, our newest enterprise.
Oh.
Any other questions on that one? We will definitely get that to you before the end of the year. The next item is the Braemar Master Plan, and that's the master plan for Braemar Golf Course. As you all know, we're very well underway with that. We've approved a concept in terms of an 18-hole renovation, and we are in process of working with Richard Mandel and the 9 Mile Creek Watershed District to approve a final plan that will give us the opportunity to provide construction and bidding documents for that project. So it's coming along nicely. The next item is fundraising for Parks and Recreation Department. And honestly, this is an item that we have not completed anything on so far. We've had some conversations, but we have not taken any further steps on this initiative. And the next one is the Urban Forest Task Force report. And if you recall, very early in this year, in the first quarter, we received a report from a member of the Energy and Environment Commission. The Park Board discussed it, and we also have made some recommendations for implementation in our park strategic plan. And that is it. Be happy to answer any more questions about any of those items if you'd like.
So for the fundraising initiative for 2015, is it staff's intent to just shift that into 2016?
It certainly could, if that's an item that we have some members that some members of the Park Board would be interested in taking on. I think that's part of the reason that it is stalled. It's a significant item. As I mentioned, we've had some conversations, but it hasn't gone any further than that.
Yeah, we're about to discuss the 2016 work plan. So,
okay.
I mean, that's fine. We can talk about that now. There's a few things that are on there. There's some that maybe we want to put on there or take off, and that's up to the group to decide.
Okay.
The fundraising, it's an important issue. It probably needs a lot of support and a lot of time involvement. So if there's someone that really wants to spearhead that, I'd welcome that, because it's an important thing that we need to take a look at. So, but there hasn't been anyone really that's stepped forward that's taken a lot of time with it yet. So I know there's some people that have an interest. So.
Well, and as far as the Urban Forest Task Force report, Ellen and my time on this board is like numbered. So, I mean, are we doing anything between now and when we leave? Ellen?
What are you talking about?
I'm
doing a lot of things between now and when we leave.
Oh, well, no, on the Urban Forest Task Force item. I mean, I haven't done anything on this item.
I know, and so that is one of those things where it was presented to us from Energy and Environment before we were even involved in the committee. So, yes, it is something very urgent that we need to get involved. The Park Board should be involved with that.
Well, but our names are on this, so are you and I doing something on this?
We were on it for 2015. So are you proposing that we include it in 2016?
I just want to know if I should be working on this between now and when I leave.
I think we'll talk about that as we talk about these items, whether or not if you want to work on that. And it's unclear to me, and whether or not that report has already been done. Is there a working?
Yeah, there's a long report that has been done.
But is there, and this is my confusion, is there currently a working group working on it?
Honestly, Ellen, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's a working group that's currently working on it under the Energy and Environment Commission. I don't believe that there is, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd be happy to check on that and report back to you.
Yeah, and it's a important report, so I would be happy to continue working toward having something like this for the city. So it's just that it hasn't been presented to us. So.
What would you suggest be the next step for these two? I guess I'd like to. I know they both have an interest, and I'd like to get some work done yet this year. There's 4 months left in 2015. If we could get something done and see where it's at that point for 2016. I know Louise probably like get something done, correct?
Well, I'd be happy to give it some attention and focus. I just need a little direction about what it is exactly on the goal.
Yeah.
Susan just checked, and it is not currently a working group within the city.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we could add it to 2016, and Louise and I could work on that.
As non-park board members, is what you're suggesting? As members of the park?
Until we're done, until March.
Oh, okay. I think, are you done in February, I believe, is that right? Man, right, so
actually,
5 more months?
I would be willing to continue to work on it. I think it's that important past my park board.
Yeah, so there's two ways to run a group, right? You can have a committee, which is comprised of park board members, or you can have a working group, which is also composed of outside non-park board members. So you could transition over from being, and stay in that working group. Yeah, I think we'd welcome that for sure. If you're interested as well.
I'm really happy to do this, but I think we just need a little clarification about whether or not there was a group that has approved it from Energy and Environment. I just want to know where it stands right now.
Absolutely. Sure. I'll get an update from the Energy and Environment Commission, and I'll let you know what the exact status is.
Okay. And at that point, we can talk some more. All right. Any other questions on the 2015 work plan? No? All right. Then moving on, the next item is the 2016 work plan. And Brenda and I will kind of walk us through some of this. And what we're really looking for, this is a draft, and it was included in your packet. There are some items on there that from what's left over from the 2015 and some of the things we've talked about, and from the retreat results from our last meeting, input from staff, and a variety of sources. This is what we've come up with. There's limited items on here. I'd like to go through them, get some feedback. We need to turn a document into the City Council coming up soon. What date do we need that done by?
September 29th is my deadline.
Okay. So whatever comments and questions you have, let's go through these one by one. And one thing we had talked about from the retreat, and just from past experience, when we go through at the end of the year and we look at the work plans, and it's been going on for quite some time, a number of items jump to the forefront and get funding and have some more importance from the council and whatnot. So other ones get pushed back year after year. Brenda and I had talked, and I think we'd like to, and we realize this is a volunteer situation, but we'd like to get at least one person's name, if not two or more, on the items. If there's just no interest in anyone really being taken some leadership role on each of these items, then it's questionable whether we should have it on the work plan, because as we found out, if there's no one accountable, it doesn't get done. So it doesn't mean you need to step forward tonight. We'd like to get some names on there as soon as possible. If tonight you're willing to say that's the item I'd like, or if there's two items, we'd like to hear from you. So, and then we'll pencil your name in there and work with you and see what we can get done next year. So anyway, the number one item is Roslyn Park, and Ann went through that a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to go through too much detail on that. Corin, who is the member that's absent tonight, did send an email to us and said she'd be interested in having her name down on that particular item. So is there anyone else that feels they'd like to join her, or is there any other comments on that one? All right, and then I think Susan Faust, I'm going to put your name on there as well. I think you're the staff member with that one. So, all right. Next one is Fred Richards Park Master Plan. Not sure if that's officially going to stay on there or not. So I don't know if you need to look for names or not at this point. What do you think, Ann?
That is pending funding, but I really would like to get some member names signed up for it if you'd be willing.
Sure, yep. Okay.
So I was interested as well.
Okay, so speak up and I think we'll get the names down there.
So I'm sorry, was that just Jerry?
Jerry and Susan.
Jerry and Susan, okay, perfect.
All right. Anyone else? Two is sufficient, and I think, unless Brenda's got one, I think we're withholding and kind of seeing if there's some gaps, and you and I can jump in on some of these where there is no one that's stepping forward. All right. The next initiative is the park signage replacement plan and the implementation. And again, Corin had two that she wanted her name on, so I have her name on that one as well. So she showed an interest in that. Is there anyone else?
I'm interested in that.
Okay, sounds good. And that's two. Anyone else? All right. All right. Next is Grandview and the facility planning for that. It is 2016, but I think I'm going to get a volunteer here very shortly.
I'd be happy to work on that.
All right. So we have Ellen, Susan. We have two. Doesn't mean that's all we can have. So is there anyone else?
Yeah, I'd be happy to help with that too.
Yeah. Okay. And Ellen, I'm assuming you'd like to, if this ends up being a work group, you'd like to stay on that for the long term. Is that fair to say? Okay. What? I'm thinking it's February when the terms end. Am I correct on that? It's changed?
Janet's going to get back to us on that, but yes, I believe it is the end of February.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right, and the next item is recreational programming analysis. And I think, Ann, give us a little background on what that means exactly.
Sure, I'd be happy to. As part of the strategic plan, we talked about reviewing all of our programs and completing mini business plans for all of them, just to make sure that we have enough programs that stay in that active range. And we would like to complete business plans on all of our programs every year, but we're hoping to get some park board member input as to what we're doing and how we can improve.
All right. Is that what we're including in programming analysis too? Is there any actual programming gaps and that kind of thing that we're looking at with that situation?
That's what we'd like to look at as well.
Yeah, okay.
Anything that we're offering or anything that we're missing.
Okay, good. All right, any volunteers?
Yeah, I can help with that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So I could help with that too.
Would it be possible for me to help as well?
Absolutely. Please. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Anik. All right, and the next item is recreational programming and facilities marketing and communication delivery review. So maybe you could clarify that as well.
I'd be happy to as well. That's another item that was on our strategic plan, and that is focusing more on the marketing and communication aspects of how we're educating and informing our residents on our offerings. So we'd like to know what we're doing successfully, what we need to improve on, and how we can improve our communication delivery within the department.
Yes, which came up several ways, several times in the retreat last month. So I think it's important.
I would be interested in that.
Okay, good. Are you nodding your head, or is that you're just no? Okay. We'll assign you to all the ones no one else wants. All right. Anyone else? All right. We'll leave it at that. That one might be another one. Might be putting too much on Corin's plate, but I know she had mentioned something like that earlier. So, all right. Next one is engage external resources to provide environmental programming. And we've talked about several different things. What do you have more specific?
This also came up as an initiative as part of our strategic plan, and we would like to explore any partners that we have in this area that might be able to assist us in offering environmental education programs. So it could be a watershed district, could be Three Rivers Park District, a variety of different potential agencies, but that was definitely something that was identified as a need and a desire throughout our strategic planning process.
I'd like to work on that.
All right, thank you. I'll put my name on that one as well as some others later on, but that one, I've got some contacts, so I can work with that one. All right, and this next one sounds kind of neat, the Edina to Go application, or the app, and how we can utilize it for parks and recreation. A number of different ways that were mentioned that we could go with that in the retreat last month. I don't remember who talked about it at length, but is there anyone that would like to put their name on that?
I could.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Can I help out with this one?
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you.
You're probably more into the apps than the rest of us up here. All right. And then there's some other things that were mentioned under ongoing responsibilities that you can see there. And then other work plan ideas for consideration for next year or future years underneath that. So that's it's a draft right now, and I'm happy to say we've got at least one name on every item here.
Dan, a couple things. I'd be willing to add my name to Fred Richards as well for next year. And also looking back, taking a step back to this year, I noticed there's not a board member on the cost recovery goals for enterprise facilities. I'd be willing to help with that too for this year. Thank you. Yep.
So Dan, on the items below, so I was talking with Ellen, and we would like to do the pollinator garden and see if we can get some traction at one of the schools to help facilitate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like a really fun project. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So I think if that's okay, we could move it up, and we wouldn't need any funding or anything. We just need some support from the...
Sure. Is that something you want to do in 2015, or you want to do it in 2016?
I think we'll start now and for implementation in the spring.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That sounds great.
Dan, I was wondering if we could consider, as a group, one other idea.
Okay.
And it wouldn't cost the city any money, but it would be, what I'd like to propose is to add a multi-year playground renovation plan. So what we would be doing would be, the plan would create a schedule for the replacement of playgrounds and other features of neighborhood parks, much like the schedule that the Public Works Department created for street reconstruction projects. It would be based on objective measures such as age and condition of playground equipment, as well as other factors. I think that it would need a group of us working to try to identify those factors that we would be measuring to create the plan. The reason that I'm asking us to look into this is because I'm really concerned about our ability to maintain our parks, and I know that neighborhood parks are the heart of our community, and so I've looked at the strategic plan, and it states that there's at least 12 playgrounds that are high priority for replacement, and these playgrounds were installed in 1995, 96, and 97, so currently they're 18 years old. When I came on board, the replacement for playgrounds was around, I remember looking at the schedule, and it was 15 years we were going to be replacing our playgrounds, and now we've got 12 that are 18 years old. And at the last capital improvement plan that I saw, which was last year's capital improvement plan, there were only 3 scheduled in the 5-year capital improvement plan to be replaced. So we've got a budgeting issue that we've got over $3 million in playgrounds that we should be scheduling and planning for, as well as master plans. I know that our budget is tight. I know that we've got all sorts of restraints, but if we don't put those playgrounds onto the capital improvement plan, I'm concerned that we'll get to 2020 and we'll have at least 12 playgrounds that need to be replaced. So I would like to just come up, this year we're putting in 2 new playgrounds. They're scheduled to put in, I think, 2. And so what I would just suggest is that we come up with something like that, where we're putting in at least 2 every year, and how do we go about figuring that out? And so I would be suggesting that would be something that the Park Board could look into.
All right, I like it. It's a noble idea. Let me ask, are you looking for it to be in a work plan item, or are you looking for it, how would you like to see that?
I would like it as
implemented?
a work plan idea, as a working group, and so that we could propose this. So I know that this is one of those things where we have to align our priorities with what our city wants to do, our priorities with our work plan, and I think that this is a big priority in order to maintain our parks.
Right. Any other comments? I guess Ann and Susan, I'd like to get your input on. I know we have plans, and the staff has that kind of situation. How would you like to see us work at that item?
I think it's a great idea. We have a list of playgrounds and their ages, and typically the way that it's been done in the past is we receive reports from park maintenance, and they tell us the park's play equipment that is in most need of replacement, and so we have a prioritization that way. But agreed. Certainly, planning and providing for the funding sources is critical, and to get input from the park board in addition to the input that we're receiving from park maintenance would be valuable. I think it's a great idea.
All right, yeah, so we can add that to the work plan. Is there anyone else that wants to comment on that or add to that idea?
I'd be happy to help with that.
Yeah, okay, good. And I'm assuming Ellen would like to be on that one as well? All right. Is there any item on here that someone thinks shouldn't be on here, or should be, construed in a different manner? I don't think we ever talked about that. We just went through like they're on here and they're on here for good, just like they are. But we can certainly talk about them.
I did have a quick question about how the recreation programming and facilities marketing. I had assumed that when I first read it before I got to the bottom would include sort of the Edina to go as part of that. it seems like those two groups would end up working together at some point too, but.
Certainly could be, absolutely. Edina to Go would be one aspect of marketing and communication. Certainly, we could add those together, or we could keep them separate. The other part of the Edina to Go app that would be nice to be able to implement at some point would be something like what we do for Public Works and the report a pothole. If we could have a report a problem in the parks, that would be very valuable. At this point, the Park Maintenance Division is not utilizing the workflow software that's required for that, but they're getting ready to. So we're very close to being able to implement that.
All right. Thank you, Ann.
Okay, so, and I'm looking at this fundraising for the parks, and I'm wondering if, as we look at the inclusive park playground that we needed to raise funds for, if that would be a test case for that.
It certainly could be. I think the way that it's written here would be, possibly setting up some sort of a fundraising arm, whether it be Friends of the Parks or, some type of a similar situation. We also have the ability to do some fundraising through the Edina Community Foundation. So it's certainly a very important initiative. Whether or not it's something that the park board wants to take on this year or not is certainly up to you. We'd be happy to help with that.
Yeah, I mean, some of those items, they're not a full item on the work plan. They certainly could be if someone wants to, step up and get behind it. They're listed because we think they're important. Nothing's really been done too much on them yet, but we certainly want to have some attention paid to those.
So when I was looking at it, I was kind of thinking of it the same way Ellen was, is if we do need fundraising for one specific item that's on the work plan, might be a really nice way to just kind of start figuring out how to do that and what makes sense, and we can explore different options. And then the year after, we could expand that. Maybe that actually fits into other playground equipment or whatever we might need. So to me, I think they have to go together. Otherwise, I don't think that first inclusive playground is going to work if we don't have a fundraising initiative behind it. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I would be happy to work on that too if it becomes if you can make it into a working group. Because I think I'm going to be busy for the next couple months.
So we had 2 people sign up for that inclusive playground. Do they agree with that idea? I think Susan was one of them, but
yeah, and Corin.
Does that make sense? And yeah, Corin's not here.
Yeah.
So I think if they agree that makes sense, then I think that could be the facility that would get that fundraising, that whatever initiative we put, and then it could be expanded more to this Friends of the Park and something that's more holistic going forward. Do you think so, Ellen? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, we'll get a little bit of traction, right, and see and talk about it and get something going on the fundraising. So that's positive.
Can I just suggest on that one, though, also if there's maybe another park board member that might be interested in taking that one on as well, it would be awesome if Ellen would be willing to continue on a working group, but we would need a current active park board member to be leading that working group.
So what I think we should do, Anne, is we should talk to Corin as well and see, because I feel like it kind of fits with this one, and for them to even move forward, they have to have funds to make that happen, and see how we could put that together.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this is actually an action item, one of 2 tonight, so we need to vote on this. I think we've had the discussion, and folks have seen where we're at with this, and I think we've had some additions and whatnot to it. So someone would like to make a motion to approve the 2016 work plan as with the changes that we've made here recently?
Motion to approve with changes?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? All right. The motion passes. Thank you. I think we can move on from the work plans there. The next item is the Park Board Retreat Review. And Brenda's going to speak a bit on what we discovered and what some of the comments that were made last month at the retreat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dan. So Dan and I met, and we went through all of the great information that we collected last month. And I was just going to share sort of our thoughts on some of it and see if we're missing something or if you feel like this is the right way to go. So if you can just chime in if there's something that you, if you have some comments on it. So really looking at the start doing, stop doing, continue doing areas. So start doing under the marketing communications. We looked at all the different points that we had summarized there, and we felt really that using key metrics could be incorporated into our work plans and the reports that we have. That's something new. We haven't really had report out meetings on the work plans, and Dan and I intend to do that going forward. And I think in that we can ask those members that signed up for those to determine what their metrics would be and then report out against that so we can keep track of progress. Okay? And then the website, we know the website needs a lot of improvement. And so we talked to Anne about that, and she and staff are working with the communications department. So there's more to come on that. There's a knowledge that it needs to be improved. And I don't think there's anything we can do at this point until Anne needs our help. And the other one was on the marketing efforts for programs and facilities. And we felt that we have that incorporated in the marketing plan section of our work plan. And so I think that'll be that the outcome will come from that. So we're hopeful that that'll solve that one and engage with the community. We had a couple of different things. We were thinking on the more naturalist program that Louise signed up to help lead, and Dan, that maybe we have park board members go to those and participate, and then that gives us some community involvement to talk with people, but open to other ideas on how we might be able to do that. So if people have thoughts on how we can engage with the community, we think that's one simple way if we start a program like that.
And just to add a note here, we kind of met as a leadership group and took some notes and talked about these individual items and how we can integrate it into our work plan and how do they match up with the strategic plan and where are we going to go with these going forward. Obviously, some we can work in right away, some later on, some not at all. But as Brenda's making her comments, feel free to add your 25 cents, and it doesn't mean that's the only direction we can go. There might be something else that needs to be said on these.
Oh, yeah, for sure. These are just our thoughts. And we were trying to figure out how can we incorporate as much of this into the fiscal year 16 component. And again, with the welcome information to the residents, that's all in the communication and marketing plan, so we think that'll be covered there. Then we looked at the work quality and completion, and we had a couple of different conflicting responses or thoughts on the finances. Some people wanted more finances, some people less. So we're going to, we go through quite a bit of the finances this winter, and let's see if that gives us enough. And then we can decide if there's more that we need to do there. And then resources to complete the work projects. That's one thing Dan talked about earlier. We really want people that are going to own these, and then we're going to have report out meetings. We don't want to have things on our work plans that people won't have time for. Lots of great ideas, but if we don't have time, we're not going to, we just won't succeed at them. And then the last one was maintain the plan of the parks and properties. And we were thinking some of that was with the, if there's some maintenance with that, maybe the Edina to Go application could assist with that. On site visits for members, we're feeling that we've tried to do things this year. So we had the review of the new Braemar facility. That was really nice. And we had the offsite at Centennial Lake. So we'll continue to do things like that, 1 or 2 events like that each year. Right, Dan? Yes. Yep.
I think even December we're going to be offsite again, if that's correct.
Yeah, I forgot. And we also had, the December one. Yeah, that would be good. Meeting procedures. So one thing you might have noticed about the agenda, I know I've been kind of looking at my watch, but we're a little bit off on the agenda, but Anne is going to set time guidelines for us to try to keep us closer on track, because sometimes we get off on tangents. And so it at least gives us an idea of how much time Anne thinks it should take. And if we're taking much more than that, we might want to just check and see if we really need to continue that discussion. And then the other thing is with the information only, we just have to remember a lot of that is just information for us. It's not, not making a decision. And we should read through all that before the meeting and really just have our comments on questions you have. And it shouldn't necessarily be the fact finding at the meeting. So we're hoping that those things will help to make sure we can complete our meeting agenda items by 9.
One thing I'd like to add to that as well, and maybe folks aren't aware of this, and some of the newer people maybe for sure wouldn't be, but when you get a cover sheet on each of the agenda items, if you look on the top right, it says action, discussion, information. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 or 3 or they're different all the time. Action means we need to take a vote on it. Discussion is open for discussion, and information is information only. And there's certain items that it's suitable to do a certain one of those at some point and not at another point. So I think there's some comments about we get some things that are just information only, and why? Well, sometimes it's suitable, and we need to be educated before we make a decision later on, or to have a discussion about it. So that's just a little something I want to make sure everyone's aware of. So.
Right, and if it's information, we don't have to have a long discussion, but it's something Ann thought or Dan thought it would be important for us to know and to make sure that you were aware of if you heard about it in the community or something like that. Okay, so then... we didn't feel we wanted to limit any members' time to talk. So we understand sometimes our discussions might go off on tangents or they seem a little bit long, but we want to make sure all the members have an opportunity to express their viewpoints. So we really don't have a to-do on the next one. But we do think just keeping an idea of the time and making sure that we're cognizant of that will help us as members.
It is the chair's responsibility, and I see it as if someone thinks it's valuable enough and they're a member on the board, I want to let them speak. And if it gets carried away or if it goes really crazy, I'll stop something. But if someone has something that they think is valuable, I think we should hear them out within reason. So.
And the next one is something we haven't, or at least since I've been on the park board, I haven't really seen, and that's having the work plans added to the agenda so we can have report outs. So what we'll ask are those members who signed up for those is to say, hey, I think in March, I'd like to have a report out on my particular project, and it'll get added to the agenda. But everybody will need to have a report out on theirs during the year. Okay? So I think that'll help. And then the other one is a suggestion on just knowing what's happening on our calendar, because there are some specific things that happen on specific months. So Anne's going to look at that, and on those months where, like, for instance, now we need to work on the work plan, we'll have a calendar that says in the September meeting we approve the work plan, and then in December we do this, we look at the fees or we look at the capital budget. I think that will help, especially new members, and just kind of planning for what other agenda items we might have time for. And then we also, I think this was about staff reports. There was a section on getting more information from the staff, and so Anne really has her update with us each meeting, and so she'll work to see if it makes sense to have more visibility with the particular staff, if that's applicable, if that makes sense. And then there was a comment about having standard advisory communications, and we talked about that and talked to Anne, and that's a really great idea. And those will be specific types of communications that we want to go to the council. So not all of the work that we do here would be in that type of format. There would be specific examples. And Anne, do you have an example of what that? I think you shared an example with me of when that would make sense for us.
We haven't done one yet as a park board, and it's actually a fairly new item for the city council as well. This would be something that I would see that we would want to use if something is urgent and we don't have time to talk about it on the agenda and to have the city council be able to review it in the minutes. That's one thing. Or if there is something that hasn't made an agenda that is going on in the community or is happening in the park system that you want to draw extra attention to the city council. So it's not something that I would see us doing regularly by any stretch, but if there's something that's important that you feel you want to include in the park board packet separate from the park board minutes, that would be a great way to do it.
Okay, and then the other ones kind of fit in with other topics, so we felt like we had those covered. And then from the student perspective, and it's great to see participation already on the work plan, really up to them on participating, but we always encourage your participation. And whatever work plan items that you'd like to be involved in, you're completely welcome. Okay? And then we looked at the stop doing, and on there, we had a bunch of agenda items. And what we're trying to do here is, again, we've got the time on here, so we've kind of addressed this through the start doing. So let's just evaluate and see how we think that's going, and then provide feedback to Dan and to me and Ann if we need to improve that. We had a lot of discussion last month about paperless, and that's something Ann's looking at. There's some options. They're not quite ready for us yet. And so she'll continue to evaluate those, and when they're ready, we can convert over to that. But we did want to remind everybody, if you don't want to receive the packet in the mail, we don't need to send those. So if you like just getting the electronic form and that works, we can individually choose not to receive the packet. So just let Ann know, right?
Absolutely. If you don't want to receive the packet, certainly let me know. And that's how all the boards and commissions at this point are handling it. It's more of an opt-out as opposed to an opt-in.
Mm-hmm. And decision-making, here is the over-promising of completion dates and things like that. So again, we think having those report-out meetings will help us stay on track. Or if we're not on track as a board, we can make a decision maybe to halt that particular project because we don't have enough initiative, enough people working on it, or it ended up getting more difficult than we thought, or the funding didn't come through. And topics for consideration. Let's see. So these were just, I think, some comments. People were really just expressing some of their opinions about we're doing things that maybe city leadership doesn't want us working on, not adding agenda items that aren't ready for park board review, and things like that. So we'll just be cognizant of that. And remember, some of the things are just information. It's not something that you need to make a decision or even have a discussion on. And then keep doing. We're not going to go through that in too much detail, but we were really pleased to see there are a lot of items on the keep doing, and so we'll keep doing those. So that was great. And if you see something on here that doesn't happen, then make sure you bring that to our attention. But and then the rest of it, we tried to cover off in the work plan. So I think those were already addressed.
All right. Thank you, Brenda. Well done. Is there any discussion or comments on those notes? All right. All right. Well, then let's keep moving along. Next is item D, which is bottled water. And we've got a motion that Ellen wants to bring forward, and we can discuss with, she had a lot of documents and a lot of good information along with her motion.
Okay, thank you. So I am proposing that the city no longer, actually I have two proposals. So the first one is I am proposing that the city no longer provide us with these bottles at our board meetings. We only are provided those plastic single-use bottles during televised meetings, which happen 4 times a year. And so I would propose that from our board. I could give you a brief rundown on why I think that, but I don't want to run on.
Very brief, because I think we've all seen the materials, and
Yes.
we generally have an understanding of what, why the
Okay.
motion's being put forth.
So one of the Park Board's six guiding principles is to advance environmental stewardship and conservation, to preserve and protect natural resources, and build excellence through sustainability. And with that as one of our guiding principles, I find that providing water bottles in a televised way is particularly showing the wrong type of environmental stewardship. And first of all, Edina water is perfectly fine, so I would like people to see us drinking our own city water. It will eliminate some costs, but mostly I think what I'd like to do is educate the public and try to get more people aware of the cost, both economic and environmental, of single-serve plastic bottles. Currently, many governing bodies have already concluded that the negative environmental and economic effects of bottled water warrant a ban. Large municipalities such as San Francisco, Toronto, and Vancouver, as well as smaller cities such as New Haven, Connecticut, Brookline, and Concord, Massachusetts, have passed bottled water bans. Over 60 schools have taken action banning these types of bottled water on their campuses, such as Harvard, Princeton, pretty much all the Ivies, Northwestern, Macalester locally has banned those bottled waters. About 24 national parks have banned sales of bottled water, including the Grand Canyon, Zion, Mount Rushmore. Zion has actually said that they've found that they've made more money selling reusable bottles than they lost in the bottled water sales. Bottom line, it is just wasteful. It wastes water. It takes 3 liters of water to make approximately 1 liter of bottled water. It's expensive. A gallon of water sold in bottles can cost more than a gallon of gas. Refilling a 16-ounce reusable water bottle from the tap costs less than 1 penny. So I could go on and on about these things that I've written, and I would just like to see if anyone would second my motion that we no longer, the city no longer provides the park board with bottled water at our meetings.
Is there any more discussion points? Or Louise, did you want to have any comments towards this?
Not only is it wasteful, but in terms of the trash load that these bottles present to the parks, I mean, our parks are littered with plastic bottles. It's kind of disgusting. And, I would like to challenge other commissions, if this passes, to do the same as we are, including the City Council and anyone out in the televised audience who's a member of a board, because it's the right thing to do. So I wholeheartedly support not using these bottles anymore.
All right. Any other comments? I know there's, and maybe even before we vote, we should talk. Anne's got an alternative to the bottled waters that we can bring forward.
I would like to provide some sort of a reusable water bottle for the park board to be able to bring to meetings if you'd like. Some sort of a stainless steel bottle, if the park board would be interested in that.
Sure, preferably with an Edina emblem on it.
Absolutely. Nice green logos on it.
Yes. All right, so I thought that would be suitable, and if there's any potential naysayers that are grumbling about this, we could have a solution for you. But all right, so the motion's forward. Is there any further discussion, or is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
My second motion would be that we would ask the Energy and Environment Commission to put that type of policy, some type of policy in Edina for handling bottles of water.
How would we go about, what's the best way of making that happen?
I would suggest that the park board make a motion, and I will pass that on to the staff representative of the Energy and Environment Commission for their review.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I guess I'm not clear what the motion is in this case, and this sounds like one that might need a little deeper discussion if we're now saying we'd like to make a recommendation that other councils do something with it besides just not have water bottles.
Right. So I'm not prepared to come up with a policy for the city on this, but I do think that the city should look into it. And this motion could be a collaboration. It could be something that both the park board and Energy Environmental work together on, if you think that that's a good idea. Or it could be that we see if it looks like the city just hired a new environmental consultant? Is it
It was to
consultant or-
replace it. It's not a new position. It was to replace someone that left the city.
Okay, so, but their job is not writing policy on waste, is it? Would this?
I
I
don't believe so.
So I have to admit that I don't know the exact proper channel to do this or how this should be, but it does seem like it would be in the realm of energy and environment to be proposing these types of things for the city. So my motion would be that we would suggest that they add that to their work plan.
Is there another avenue you can think of that would be more effective? I mean, is that where we should use one of those forms we just talked about and maybe offer it up to the city council to think about and potentially then pass to the proper authority as they see fit to look into this?
It could be, Dan. I don't know that that an advisory communication would be necessary. It could be something that we discuss at another park board meeting, and the park board could take this as an initiative as well. It could be something that we just discuss. You ask staff to report back as to the amount of bottled water that we sell as a department, the revenues that we receive from that. We could handle it as a staff report type item. We could handle it as a work plan item, or we could handle it as trying to pass it off to the Energy Environment Commission. I think any of those ways would work itself up to the city council.
If we did a motion as is being proposed, is that overstepping our boundaries can we politely suggest that they add it to their agenda? It seems to me I want to make sure we do that properly.
I think it would certainly be acceptable to make a recommendation to the Energy and Environment Commission, and I could see them doing the same thing for you if there's something in the parks, and then that would be up to their board to decide whether or not they want to take that on.
And how would that be communicated to them? If it's in our minutes and we take action, but
it would be in the minutes. What I would do is I would report back to our staff representative to the Energy and Environment Commission, and then once our minutes are approved, we could work through the board in an official way. But if we're trying to get work plan items approved by the end of September, I'm going to need to get that to them prior to having our minutes approved. So I would just work directly with a staff liaison, since we're working on a very short time frame, in order for that to happen. I'm honestly not sure exactly when their next meeting is either, but that doesn't mean that we can't add an item. What we're doing is Dan and Brenda will be meeting with the city council at a work session in early October to discuss work plan items. So that doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to add or revise work plan items. In fact, that would be a really great opportunity for one or both of you to discuss it with the city council and representatives from the Energy and Environment Commission at that work session.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Okay. I think it seems fitting. I just want to make sure we do it, take the appropriate steps. I don't know. Can you restate it exactly how you think you'd like to politely put it forth, and then we can vote on it and take it to the energy.
Yeah, well, with this
commission.
discussion, I'm wondering, I feel as if, I don't want to be dropping something on some other commission that we actually could be doing ourselves. So as the more I talk, the more I hear us discuss it.
It might be where we say it in a polite way, because I think it's more fitting for them, but we could also say we'd also be willing to joint task forces, right, or work with you.
I think that's how I would be most comfortable saying that we would be willing to collaborate. I certainly would be willing to collaborate with someone from Energy and Environment to work on this. I would be happy to, actually. So I suppose my motion is that I move that we suggest to Energy and Environment that they consider collaborating with the Park Board on a water bottle policy for the
entire city.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Anyone want to add or detract from that? Okay. All right. Well, that's motion number 2. I guess we need a second. Second. All right. All those in favor say aye. And all those opposed. All right. Motion passes. So let it be written. All right. All right. That dispenses with the bottled water item. Council updates. Pun intended there, by the way. Council updates you have in your packets, as well as other correspondence. Chair and board member comments is next. Brenda, do you have anything you'd like to add to tonight's proceedings? No? Okay. Neither do I, actually. So, anyone else have anything to say, board members?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. One, I'd be interested, and will we be getting some Braemar course updates as we move through the progress? I mean, I live in the area, lots of progress going on. In fact, I'm quite pleased with how quickly they seem to have ripped everything up and moving along rather swiftly. But how will we be communicating back to us as a board and the community as to, is it on kind of on progress, delayed expectations, et cetera?
I actually have it on my list for you this evening.
Perfect.
So I'll give you that update. And if you'd like any more information, I'd be happy to pass that on.
Okay.
But we're doing well.
Okay. Second, I know a few times we've talked about what the park board does and what the park maintenance division does. And I know you've stated there's a good collaborative working relationship. I still tend to be somewhat confused about how those things converge and wonder if there's a way that we can kind of outline a little bit what's happening, what's expected. Again, I live near Lewis Park, drove past there, and the hockey rink's torn down. And someone asked me, well, was the park board doing that? And I said, no, the park board's not doing that. So I assume that's probably park maintenance. So how do we have a better understanding about what they're doing, what we're doing? Because I have a sense that we may create things, but then we don't plan to the upkeep and the fixing. That kind of gets pushed somewhere else.
Certainly. I mean, we can do some sort of a park maintenance report, maybe quarterly, if that's something that you would be interested in. Maybe we could do it as a staff between Susan and I. Maybe we invite someone from the park maintenance division to come in and give an update. But yet we could certainly do that. Any projects that are planned or any input that we'd like to receive from the board. That's a great idea.
Okay. And at risk
is that something that might go on a website for just so that the general public who's not watching this show would know?
It could potentially. I have to admit that it makes me a little nervous committing to putting too much of our regular maintenance on the website, just because it might be difficult for us to maintain. Now, what would be considered regular maintenance? Now, something like replacing the boards at Lewis is probably a more significant item than some. Maybe that's a conversation that we could certainly have as well. I have to say, I did receive a few phone calls from residents in the Lewis Park neighborhood about the boards when they saw them go down. They were afraid that we were not replacing them.
They weren't coming back, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's going to be replaced bigger and better. But yeah, there was some concern that it was being eliminated. But we could certainly implement something in terms of a report to the board, and certainly have more of a conversation too about how to better utilize the website and other forms of communication to the residents as to what we have going on with park maintenance.
Yeah, maybe something like just major maintenance alerts.
Agreed. That's a great idea.
And the last thing I have, Dan, would be a couple months ago we reviewed a request on West Shore Drive land swap. Mm-hmm. And so I did happen to watch the city council meeting when it also came to them. And kind of maybe a bit of a chastisement to us as a board, my own view at least. I was a little disappointed to hear that the discussion was, well, the park board and the planning commission couldn't come up with any recommendation. And I thought, well, it's kind of our job to provide advice to the city council. And did we fail to do that? Because we did have some strong feelings about some aspects of it. Mm-hmm. And so I would just maybe ask us to think about when we are reviewing those things, are we giving proper advice to the city council, or are we allowing it to not be clear enough so it can just be fed back to them that says, well, they couldn't decide anything? And so just
yes, I agree. And I think we make a significant effort to make sure we give the best advice we possibly can. And I try to make it solidified and without conflict. On some items, that one in particular is maybe the worst I've seen. there was very little agreement, even amongst us, amongst the planning commission, amongst the council members themselves, amongst city staff. I mean, it was it was all over the board. And I think they came down and they're just going to leave it be a variance and go in front of the planning commission again. I think is where the council decided. Even amongst the council, there's little agreement. So I think we did the best we could. I don't think we ever gelled and could offer a unified voice. So that's why we did it the way we did it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we got to a solution, but I wondered if even we could have picked something off, as if to say, it seemed like we were pretty strong in saying we didn't like the land swap idea. And maybe there was a piece of that we could have recommended to say, we know we don't like that. Maybe we don't have a resolution, but we would strongly recommend you don't do the land swap as we saw it. Because it seemed to start again with that same discussion, and I was saying, oh, I hope they don't go that direction.
I'm sure it did. I think, and I agree with you, I think where this situation, and if it ever comes up again on something that's really our field of expertise, let's make sure we do that. And if it doesn't happen, mention it.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable with what we did, and maybe there's a particular city councilman that wasn't, or person that wasn't comfortable with that, but that's not our field of expertise. So I didn't want to voice too loud and start picking things off, because we're not the planning commission.
Right.
And that's
We
really
couldn't
where it
touch
belongs.
that. I agree.
Yeah.
And
So-
I agree with that. I think the thing is for us is what do we have kind of
to offer, right?
To offer, and
voice.
let's make sure we offer that strongly in our voice. So, okay.
Okay, no,
Good.
I agree. Thank you.
And I would concur with both of you on that one too. That was a difficult one. It was a very difficult one, and I had that on my list for an update for today too. And I do know, based on the conversation, I was at the meeting. The city council did take the input that the city council and the planning commission provided. What we did in our part of the report was make sure that the council knew how each individual member felt. While it wasn't a unanimous decision or a recommendation, at least the city council did know how each member felt on that. And as Dan mentioned, the city council did deny the land swap, as most of you had recommended. And they did suggest that the burgers go back to the planning commission and ask for a variance. So that's how that one stands right now.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Well, then, Ann, we're moving off to staff comments.
Great, thank you very much. I have just a few, and then Susan has a few updates as well. Some of them we've already talked about through the meeting, so it'll be a little bit more brief. But the first one, as Greg had mentioned, was the Braemar Driving Range and Par 3 construction project. If you've been over there, you'll see a lot of progress, a lot of change. It's coming along very well. The project is approximately 60% complete right now. The new teeing area is at its final grade, and irrigation will be added this week. The target greens and the drainage are taking shape and also should be completed by the end of this week. The new golf hole corridors have all been cleared, and Landscapes Unlimited is in the midst of rough shaping and the final layout. And as you look at it, you'll be able to see distinguishable tees and greens to show that we really are making progress. And it's exciting to be out there now because you can see the real vision that the architect had in the design of the course. And the construction phase is well underway, and the maintenance staff is ready to take over the grow-in phase of the project in early October. So we did have a slight delay. As you know, the soils at Braemar are very peaty, and so it holds water. So we had a period of pretty heavy rains at least once a week. Every time that happened, they needed to pump water out. They needed to let things dry out. So it did delay slightly, but overall, we're very, very happy with the progress that we're making, and it's very exciting to see the course starting to take shape.
Ann?
Yes.
I was wondering if you could speak. I noticed that the master plan for Braemar is not in our work plan. Is that something that's going to be happening at the same time that they're designing the new 18-hole course there, or is it going to be delayed, or what's the status of it?
That's a great question, Ellen. We did put money in the budget as a budget request for the master plan for Braemar Park. And I think at this point, while I don't have confirmation of what will be or what won't be included in the 2016 budget, I think it's fairly certain that the Braemar Park Master Plan will be pushed to at least 2017. Again, we did make a request for 2016, but because of funding challenges, it's likely pushed to 2017.
That's really too bad, because as we're designing a whole new course, to have the ability to look at the total park and then make sure that we plan accordingly, that is a concern for me, that sometimes we look at only a small piece and then don't look at the bigger picture. Okay.
All right. Another comment to update you on is Weber Woods. The City of Edina and the City of St. Louis Park received a slightly changed version of the purchase agreement that we had submitted to the City of Minneapolis. And there are some items in that revised purchase agreement that are of concern to our city attorney and our city council. The City of St. Louis Park has the same agreement. Their city council has not had an opportunity to review as a group this revised agreement yet. I expect that to happen either later in September or early October. Once their city council has had an opportunity to review it, and our city council has had an opportunity to review it, we intend to respond back to the City of Minneapolis. We hope to be able to reach a resolution before the end of the year on this, but that's where we stand right now. And the other item that I had on my list was the strategic plan, and I already talked earlier in the meeting about how we're expecting a revised plan for you to review. Again, for information only. There isn't any substantive change. It's more a change in how the product is being delivered, and I'll get that to you hopefully by the October meeting. And then Susan has a couple of updates that she'd like to provide.
All right. The Promenade Phase 4 update. We are about 98% finished with the project. I don't know, hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a stroll, but I think it looks really amazing. And there's just a couple things left that they want to finish on the project. A lot of it is just some of the last minute landscaping. We have picked a grand opening, a ribbon cutting and grand opening for Phase 4. So we will be sending out invitations, but mark your calendars for, it's Wednesday, September 23rd. Starting at 5 p.m. So hopefully you all can join us for the grand opening. Another update is Pamela Park. I'm going to stick with my 98%. We're about 98% completed with that project as well. The last part, there's a couple items on the punch list inside the new shelter building that still have to be finished, just some lighting, nothing major. And then there's just a couple things left that have to be completed with the site work. We're waiting on in the wetland areas for seeding until November. But other than that, just about everything else at Pamela Park is finished. So we've also scheduled our ribbon cutting and grand opening for Pamela, and that is on Wednesday, September 30th at 5 p.m. We're trying to keep it consistent to make sure everyone can join us. And then the last quick update I have, and I've talked a little bit about this at some of the previous meetings, but we installed new recreation software in our department, and we're really excited. It's fully operational. We've done and gone through our first round of online registration, new memberships, and you're also going to be able to see all of our shelter buildings and facilities that residents can rent, that can use. We'll show availability, which was something that we in the past weren't able to offer. So we're excited about that. And for the most part, we had a couple glitches early on, but they were resolved really quickly, and it's all gone pretty well, very well. So thank you. Unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Susan. That all sounds exciting. That's good stuff. All right. We're at the end of the meeting. Anyone else have any comments? Our two students are awake. That's good. That's a good sign. All right. Thank you two again for volunteering for your two assignments throughout the year. That's great. All right. Seeing no other items on the agenda, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Did I hear a second? I heard a second from Greg. All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed. All right. Meeting adjourned.